In Argentina, energy companies called for an emergency summit to reject the plan of Minister of Economy Luis Caputo regarding the entity's debt. In Haiti, at least 34 health institutions have closed their facilities as a result of the siege by criminal groups. In Palestine, at least 55 civilians were killed and more than 2,000 were injured in attacks by the Israeli occupation forces in the last 24 hours. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Argentina, energy companies have called an emergency summit to reject the plan of Minister of the Economy Luis Caputo regarding the entity's debt. The plan was presented as a regularization proposal, but the company's staff members have qualified it as another imposition by the government. Workers declared that they do not accept the proposal presented to the country by the Libertarian administration. In this context, the chamber that gathers the electric energy generators, AGIRA, called for an emergency meeting. The compulsive restructuring of debt seriously affects these companies leveraged in foreign credits. Additionally, the generators noted that the resolution was signed by the Secretary of Energy, who is not empowered to issue government bonds.
Once again, the great restructurer Luis Caputo has appeared, this time making a new structure of the debts of the energy companies with a bond, a debt bond in dollars for the debt corresponding to December and January, and for February and March, a payment plan.
Members of the Argentinian Confederation of Transport Workers held rallies at their workplaces in order to reject the measures applied by the government and in the face of the half sanction that lawmakers gave to the package of laws, among which the income tax is included.
Through informative assemblies, railway, aeronautical, maritime and underground workers led a day of rejection to the measures of the National Executive.
We had a national plenary meeting of the Transport Confederation where there was a paramount debate on the domestic adjustment taking place, the upturn in fares, the income tax, the DNU that the government is willing to sign. So we decided that before the strike, all the transport unions ought to take a measure which each union can do as they wish, with no collaboration, or like us today, with the opening of the turnstiles, or like the truck drivers last evening to stop the collection of garbage, or like the air navigators to go on strike in every city.
Under the announcement of free pass, turnstile-free metro delegates opened for 2 hours the accesses to the underground terminals in repudiation of raising fares in the service.
Transport in 10 days is going to ramp up by 600%. That is in Buenos Aires City, which has the particularity that every day 4 million people come to work through here. The headers where the railways are combined with the means of transport. The buses outside and the metros inside. These people come for 2 or 3 trips. Imagine what they'll have to pay. From being the cheapest, we are now one of the most expensive metros in the world. It has to do with the logic that the President of the Republic uses. Everything is business. That is to say, there are no public services. There is nothing that guarantees the collective welfare.
They oppose the measures of the executive branch, the bills that have been passed by the Congress, and demand respect for the parity ones, among others.
We are further holding this day of protest against the possibility of reincorporating the income tax. We said that work is not profit. Today we are getting ready for the outstanding strike to take place on May the 9th. We're convinced that it'll be a very strong strike where the working class will express itself strongly against all these policies that the government of Javier Milei is pursuing.
The different unions in the sector are preparing to join the general and national strike next Thursday, a day on which there will be no public transport services.
Santiago Corey, Telesur, Argentina.
In Chile, justice sentenced Hector Yaitul, Mapuche leader of the Arauco Mayeco coordinator, to 23 years in prison. The Mapuche leader was prosecuted for the alleged violation of the law of internal security, state security. The Arauco Mayeco coordinator is a Mapuche resistance group of an autonomous nature, which for at least 2 decades has been fighting the forestry exploitation model with sabotage and direct actions, looking to expel transnationals and companies that own more than 70% of the indigenous land in the south of the country. The defense of Hector Yaitul indicated that he will present an appeal for annulment to avoid a new conviction, which they describe as persecution for his political thinking.
As a comparison, because it's unavoidable to do so in these cases. For example, human rights offenders have been condemned for violations of rights committed during the military dictatorship. They have received much lower sentences than those that my client has received, considering that he has simply dedicated himself to vociferate certain words that speak of the struggle and resistance of his people. Therefore, today, not only is Sector Dactyl Carrillanca condemned here, but also an important sector of the Mapuche nation, who are in constant struggle for their own liberation, is being condemned.
On Tuesday, the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, referred to the fact that structured and professionalized corruption has deeply penetrated several state institutions. In this sense, the Colombian leader pointed out that one of the main points to denounce is centered on the National Savings Fund for Teachers, as well as on the energy company Ecopetrol, where he noted a multimillionaire defalcation covered up by control organisms. Meanwhile, President Petro also denounced the National Unit for Disaster Risk Management, indicating that it has diverted funds destined for victims of natural tragedies. In this regard, he reiterated that fighting against corruption is one of the goals of his administration and assured that he seeks transparency in the use of the country's public resources.
I do not only speak against corruption. I have fought to eradicate it all my life. The fight against corruption is not a speech. It is not just words in the air. Fighting corruption is a matter, first of all, of principle, but also of life and death. Without opportunism, I have put my life at risk in order to reveal the schemes that have led to the fact that, in Colombia, public money ends up in the pockets of private individuals. Upon arriving at the national government, I have found what I already knew. We have a structural and professionalized corruption that has taken over several institutions of the Colombian state. My responsibility is to destroy and neutralize them.
Citizens of the state of Falcón in Venezuela received President Nicolás Maduro to ratify their support to the Venezuelan leader. On Tuesday, inhabitants of the municipality of Tocopero in the state of Falcón took to the streets to welcome the president's arrival. Maduro, together with several authorities of his cabinet, got to the town to participate in the inauguration of the Susana Maduro Hospital. During his visit, the president, supported by the community, rejected the coercive measures imposed by the United States government against the country, while local residents reaffirmed their commitment to the Venezuelan government. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. In Ecuador, the inhabitants of the canton of Olón showed their opposition to the real estate project of Lavinia Balbonesi, wife of the president Daniel Noboa, due to the devastating environmental impact it will have on a protected mangrove area. The people stopped the works of the company Vinacin, mainly owned by Balbonesi, followed by the arrival of the police forces. They assured that the logging of trees in the Estrerillo of Oloncito sector will have a lethal impact on the area that was declared in 2001 as protected forest and vegetation. In addition, the project contemplates the disappearance of a lagoon, a fact prohibited by the country's constitution, which guarantees access to water.
We are not going to let them build anything here, nor cut down a single tree. And you as a policeman should help us. not be in favor of these shameless companies that want to damage the environment. You are not going to let one more tree grow here. You as a policeman are obliged to help us.
In Haiti, at least 34 health institutions have closed their facilities as a result of siege by criminal groups. According to the Ministry of Public Health and Population, healthcare centers are working at half speed because of the problems they are facing due to the lack of supplies, inputs, and energy. According to the report, the capital Port-au-Prince and the municipalities Gongneuve, Arcachais, Cornelion, among others, are the most affected. The violence has also contributed to absenteeism from work, as many workers are caught in the middle of the intense shooting. In Brazil, the Supreme Federal Court approved the sending of resources to help cities affected by the rains that hit the country. The judiciary released more than $12 million to assist victims affected by the floods caused by the rains in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. The Federal Supreme Court's initiative allows money collected in fines to be sent to the state's civil defense. Meanwhile, local authorities report that so far 388 towns in Rio Grande do Sul have been affected. In Santiago de Chile, low temperatures caused snowfall for the first time in 4 years. The Meteorological Office of the capital city reported that the heavy rainfall of the last few days, together with the decrease in temperatures brought by cold frontal systems, are what caused the snow that fell in the eastern regions of Santiago. The snowfall surprised locals who got to experience this phenomenon again since it was last recorded in the city on July 4, 2020. In this context, the heavy rains that have been affected the region caused a blackout in central Chile on Tuesday. More than 250,000 users were left without service. The National Electricity Company reported that the most affected districts of Santiago were Maipú, Culicura, and Pudahuel, where crews were immediately deployed and managed to reconnect the service for the affected users. In Mexico, the national electricity system entered into a state of emergency due to the heat wave sweeping the country. After the power grid reached the maximum demand for energy, the authorities declared the system in an operational state of emergency. The National Energy Control Center reported almost 5 hours of power outages in several states of the country: San Luis Potosí, Hidalgo, Sinaloa, Chiapas, and Puebla were some of the 10 states that registered failures of varying intensity in the service. The use of air conditioners, fans, and other devices to alleviate the heat accelerated the collapse of services. In Honduras, the Secretary of Risk Management and National Contingencies declared on Tuesday a red alert due to high atmospheric pollution in Tegucigalpa, the capital of the country. The authorities reported that there is poor air quality due to a dense layer of smoke that affects the health of the capital's population. This situation is caused by the burning of land for agricultural purposes in the region, some forest fires, and pollution from vehicle emissions. The institution declared a green alert for the rest of the country for an indefinite period to monitor the phenomenon and protect people's health. Floods caused by the climatic phenomenon known as El Niño are impacting all of Latin America and the Caribbean. Among the affected areas is Haiti, which has already reported 17 deaths. In the last 48 hours, the torrential rains have aggravated the situation in the country. An overflow of the Dajabon River was reported on Tuesday. The Pit-Over Canal, center of serious disputes with the neighboring Dominican Republic, has been severely deteriorated. Likewise, the acting government, which is still in charge of the response to civil emergency, reported that more than 4,000 homes have been flooded. Thus, the water crisis adds to the quantity of difficulties plaguing the Caribbean nation. We have a fun short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Fun short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Palestine, at least 55 civilians were killed and more than 2,000 injured in attacks by the Israeli occupation forces. In the last 24 hours, according to medical sources, these figures could be even higher, as many of the victims of these attacks remain trapped under the rubble of destroyed structures and under roads in the areas where the bombings took place. This is due to Tel Aviv's troops' impediments to rescue teams being able to reach the affected areas. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, at least 34,844 Palestinians have been killed and 78,404 wounded in the Gaza Strip since October 2023. The African Union condemned Israel's military operations in the border town of Rafah, south of the Gaza Strip. In a statement, the multilateral bloc strongly rejected the offensive by Israeli troops, which resulted in the blockade of humanitarian aid. The note expressed concern over the thousands of deaths and the systematic destruction of the quality of life of the Palestinians due to the aggression of Tel Aviv. The organization urged the international community to coordinate collective actions to stop Israel's advances in the only passage allowed by humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. In Mexico, the Inter-University and Popular Assembly of Students and Workers of the National Autonomous University joined more than 150 campuses around the world in solidarity with the people of Palestine. In recent weeks, expressions of solidarity have been reproduced throughout the world, while the number of civilians killed, wounded, and displaced by the Israeli genocide in the Gaza Strip grows. The recent mobilizations of the academic world are a clear example of this. The Academic Collective for Palestine celebrates the initiative of Mexican students whose objective is to exert pressure to break academic, political, sports, and economic relations with Israel.
We give major importance to Gaza because in Gaza what is happening is a genocide. And a genocide is something very different from a war because it is a much more indiscriminate violence and therefore has an extraordinary impact on the population in general. That is, a genocide is the greatest possible attempt against life itself.
Also, university students in Canada stationed in camping in support of the people of Palestine and in rejection of Israeli genocide. The initiative is taking place at the University of Manitoba, located in north of the country, and will run for a period of 3 days from 9 in the morning until 11 at night local time. Students are demanding the removal of all items benefiting Israel in a list of several demands such as divestment, budget transparency, changes in investment policy, and boycott of international relations. They also call for respect for Palestinian rights in the face of increasing harassment and discrimination against Palestinian students and their allies at the universities. Protests in support of Palestine also continue in the Netherlands. Students at the University of Amsterdam continue to occupy the university building despite police repression at the facility on Tuesday. Meanwhile, they reiterate their demands for the institution to sever its academic ties with Israel and those complicit in the genocide in the Gaza Strip.
Our demand is that they be open about their links with Israeli institutions and secondly, that they break links with institutions that are complicit in genocide and apartheid. There are a few, you can see them on our Instagram page. We have collected all kinds of information about the specific links that the University of Amsterdam has, that we think should be ended. It is simply not consistent with the same ethical standard, non-discrimination, and egalitarian society that we are fighting for here in the Netherlands.
In the United Kingdom, thousands of demonstrators in support of Palestinian people gathered to denounce their rejection of Israel's attacks on Rafah, south of the Gaza Strip. On Tuesday, protesters gathered in front of the building of the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to demand the end of his cooperation with the Israeli genocide, urging him to stop sending arms to the Zionist government. More than 5,000 people participated in the encampment, reproducing in cities such as Manchester, Brighton, and Leicester. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.